Okay, so, okay, maybe I'll try. Hello, it's Jennifer from Sea Lemon. A while ago, I was searching bookbinding videos on YouTube and I came across this BuzzFeed Nifty tutorial for a DIY hardcover bookbinding, and the first comment that I saw, Sea Lemon fans having a heart attack. That is one of the most liked comments on this video, so naturally I had to investigate and see what is going on in this video. For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. I make a lot of bookbinding videos and I have been making them for a while now. So not to toot my own horn, but I do know a couple things about bookbinding. I thought it would be fun to sort of review this video with you guys, see what's going on in it, and possibly recreate the book that they're trying to make or recreate it in my own version of what I would do, and maybe it will give less people heart problems on the internet. I've tried to do a lot of other crafts on my channel that I'm not necessarily an expert in. I think that's part of the fun of making DIY videos. I still don't know everything that I'm doing, which is, again, part of the fun. I think my point is I don't want it to look like I'm dragging BuzzFeed or the person that made this book in this video. I think any attempt to make anything on the internet can be difficult, and more power to you for just putting something up in the world. So anyways, with all that said, let's get into the video. You really, this is so hard to learn from because you have to pause at every second. Okay, something they do that I don't do is cut the spine parts to fold over. And then they put, okay, they glue the inside pages to a piece of paper and then glue that piece of paper to the cover. Okay, and then they glue but wait. Okay, They just showed gluing it and then filling in the inside pages, and that was it. And the book that's being used looks different than the book that they made in the video. It's hard to see exactly how that book functions because they don't really show it much. They just show giving it as a gift and then the person's writing in it, and that's it. And it's super sped up and it's in a square and I can't tell what's going on. Let's make their version, see what it looks like, and then maybe if it doesn't function very well as a book, I'll figure out what I can do to it to make it better. All right, let's do it. Starting with the cover board and cutting them to the measurements that are in the video. But this doesn't look like their version in the video. My board is a lot more square and the spine is bigger, but I followed their measurements. This is a letter-sized piece of paper. That doesn't look right. I went to their video description to see if maybe I missed something in the measurements, and they're right there. That's what I followed, and those are the measurements, so I guess let's just go with it. Now making the X of glue like they showed and gluing the cover to the letter-sized piece of paper. Also, they gave no measurement for the space between the boards, the hinge space around the spine, so I just kind of guessed. Then cut all four corners at an angle, and cut slits along the bottom and top of the spine board piece like they showed. Then I glued the flaps over, flattened them with a bone folder, and when it came to the edges, the sides, it was very awkward because there was no paper left to fold over, but I just did what I could and glued over what was there. Now for the pages, they said to cut them to 8 by 5 inches, which I did, but it didn't say how many to cut, so I just kind of estimated. I ended up with 8 sheets, folded those in half, and then for the binding holes, it didn't really say how far away to make them on the pamphlet of pages, so I just guessed. And then I used some wax thread to bind it in sort of a saddle stitch method. It looked like they used a lot more thread in their version, but you really only need to just go around this once, so that's what I did. Then I cut a 6 by 3 inch piece of paper for the spine, added a line of glue like they showed, and put it in the middle of that paper. And now, why does this look weird? Why is that paper a different size than the cover? On their version, everything is the same height, so what am I missing? Why are the measurements off? Going back to their video description, it looks like everything in their video is 6 inches tall, but what they showed and the measurements they showed was all 5 inches. So all their measurements are off, but the example they showed in the video is correct. We all make mistakes, but the least they could do is put the right measurements in the description as an update just to let people know in case they're actually making this. Moving on, let's just work with what we have made already, and I'm just gonna glue this, continuing on with the tutorial, and I guess I'll just fold over and glue the extra pieces on this paper. Making the inside of cover and cutting it out, cutting it in half, and gluing it to the inside of the cover. And already this book is just drying amazingly, and this is why I don't glue a signature like this. But yeah, let's just keep pushing on. Let's get this done. Oh look, a measurement is off. What a surprise. I guess I'll just fold or glue this over too. At this point, it's just, this is the book. This is the outcome, and here it is. Well, here it is, people. I don't know. At this point, it's, yeah. Yeah, okay. I'm over it. After I gave it some time to dry and washed all the glue off my hands, I then went back to it to see what we could salvage from this experience, and maybe there's a different version of this book we can make. Maybe not a total fail to some people, it still functions. It's just not how I would go about binding a book. So here is my recreation of this. Starting with the pages, I'm using this watercolor paper from my recent exploration of deckled edges, and I'm going to continue that, making it to size with this fancy tool, which I quite like using. This is optional, you don't have to do it in this style, but I've been wanting to use it in a book project, so I'm using it in this one. This video also explores other ways. If you want to check it out, it's in the description. I made the total size of my folded sheets 4 by 6 inches, and if you're doing a deckled edge, keep in mind that this may be a little bit more or less because it's a rough edge. For the cover board, I'm recycling the back of a paper pad, measuring out based on my folded sheets, and then cutting it out, and here is the measurement I used for my front and back cover. And unlike BuzzFeed's video, these are the real measurements I'm using, and if there is something off, I will note it in the description. And here are the measurements for the spine piece. To experiment even further in this video, I wanted to try this really thin vinyl material, which I recently got from Amazon. It's actually used for making hair bows, but I think it could work well for a book cover. You can, of course, use any other material you'd like. So for the layout of the board pieces on the cover material, you want to keep them centered, and the space in between the pieces really does matter because it will determine how your book opens and closes. I'm measuring out 1/4 of an inch on either side of the spine piece, which is the hinge measurement, and I'm marking it so I know where to glue the board. Now using PVA or book glue and gluing those board pieces down. I also like to use some sort of straight edge underneath them so the board pieces can be aligned and dry straight. And smooth it over with a bone folder if you need to. Quickly trimming off any excess on the flap areas so it looks a little bit more neat on the inside, and cutting all corners at an angle while still leaving a little bit on the very tip of the corner. And I don't see any need to cut slits around the spine area. Now I'm gluing all the flaps over. Sometimes with vinyl covers you have to work with it and keep it held down a little to make it fold over, and then I smooth it out with a bone folder. And that extra material I left on the corners will be used to glue over the tips so that the board isn't exposed. Now I'm measuring and cutting out the paper that will go on the inside cover. Using a thick piece of cardstock and gluing it down, and I like to start with glue on the inside board, and then I brush on a border of glue on the paper. That way it wrinkles less and there's less warping. Now putting a piece of paper on top to absorb any excess moisture from the glue, and putting a weight like a heavy book on top to let the whole thing dry. And you can use this time to wash off your glue brush. Once the cover is dry, I can get on to the binding. For the binding holes, I measured out 1/2 inch marks centered on the spine of the folded pages, and pierced through all pages stacked together with an awl. I then centered that on the outside spine of the cover and used those same measurements as a template to make the holes in the cover. And make sure those holes are large enough for the binding needle to go through. As you can see, I decided to go with an exposed binding on this, and I'm picking out some cotton thread, which then I'm going to wax because it will help protect and make the thread more durable since it's on the outside of the book. Single thread the binding needle and then do whatever stitch you prefer on this book. I'm going with a chain stitch, and I'm not going to show the whole binding method in this video because that would make it really long. So if you don't know how to do this method, I have a whole video about it. You can check it out right here for step-by-step instructions. This is a chain stitch bookbinding tutorial, the link is in the description, and it also includes a different cover method. This is actually a pretty easy stitch to do once you get the hang of it, and since we're using a single pamphlet of pages, I thought it would work well with this binding. So instead of gluing the pages to the inside of the cover like on Nifty's book, I think this is a way more elegant and just neater way of attaching the stitches to the cover. Because this is such a small amount of pages, it just makes more sense to me. I also think this allows the book to open and close easier since you don't have a bunch of glue on the spine. And I may be biased since this is my own book, but I like my version better. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Regardless, no hate to BuzzFeed Nifty. If they hadn't put that video up, I wouldn't be inspired to make this, so thank you for the inspiration, BuzzFeed, and thank you guys for commenting. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and if you like this video, hit that like button. And if you want to see more recreations of something on the internet, let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see on this channel. And if you want to support more book projects, I have a Patreon tier for that. It's called Book Lemon. Go check it out along with all my other Patreon tiers. I'll put that link down below. And you can also support this channel through YouTube memberships. Those have their own perks as well. Check that out by hitting that join button next to the subscribe button, which I hope you have done also. Hit that subscribe button and do me a favor and hit that bell icon right next to it so you can get notified every time I post a new video. That way you won't miss any of them. And I have a whole playlist full of bookbinding videos, bookbinding projects. I also have different playlists on my channel, but you can go directly to the bookbinding projects right here. And I will put every link I mentioned in the description below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!